Hello, and welcome to our ongoing book club where we're discussing the art of returning to love, how to show fear and stress the exit to heal. And today we're talking specifically about this feeling of hopelessness. I decided to have some time with this energy of hopelessness because I'm hearing it a lot from people around me that they feel hopeless, specifically for the state of the world, but also for other more individual things too. So, um, one of the things on page 45, by the way, you're welcome to grab this book for free and read it in a PDF format, or you can get a Kindle or paperback version on Amazon. All those links are in the description box. On page 45 of the PDF, we're talking about each individual's inborn urge to heal. So that just means like it's our impulse to move ourselves toward a healing, more of a healing alignment. And I love the word heal as an acronym for health, expression, abundance, and love. Health and vitality, right function, divine function, even expression, empowerment, ease, abundance. That's just literally the things that make our life any life able to thrive. And then love, of course, the point of our conversations is the returning of energy to love. So potential, this is our true nature and our potential meaning that it exists in every single cell of our being. And you've heard me say, we have 70, science thinks between 70 to 100 trillion cells, and in every inside every one of those cells is 170 to 100 trillion atoms, and inside every atom is an electron, and that electron carries our potential. It carries our light force. It carries our blueprints for wholeness. And so that is a lot of light. It's a lot of potential, right? It's our job as a human being to activate that, to access it. And that is an inside job. We will not get that from the outside. So for those of us who are waiting for the world to settle down and be less chaotic, so that we can finally bring our attention inside and find the access to these things that we're talking about, I don't think it's going to work that way. I think it's actually the opposite. I think the world won't settle down until more and more of us bring our awareness and our attention to this still point that lives inside the trillions and trillions of particles that make up who you and I are as flesh and blood beings, even though most of us, 96% of us, is non-physical. So this is a lot of potential awaiting our attention, and this is really our number one purpose. It's our prime directive as a conscious being is to curate our energy from the inside out. And then what gets reflected and projected in the world is a very different picture. It's very different happenings, if you will. What in my personal feeling is that what's being projected now is a long line, eons of time of human beings being disconnected from this potential and this light force, if you will. So I love to call this alchemy. So what do I mean by that? Like, let's just use this feeling of hopelessness that a lot of people are feeling. It's like, when will we ever find our way to peace from war? When will we ever choose kindness more than we choose hate? When will there be a time where inclusion is much more dominant than exclusion and division and us versus them kind of a feeling, which makes us feel isolated and alone and hopeless, right? So what I've learned, because I've been working with this for a long time, is that inside of an emotion like hopelessness is always, layered inside of that is always the energy to transform or alchemize, in this case, hopelessness. I mean, it could be anything: anger, frustration, sadness, any of those energies carry with it, its opposite, if you will, the capacity to transform two opposite energies, so hopelessness and hope, into a third transcendent energy of wholeness. And our job as a human being is to practice doing that. And yes, it is a practice. And yes, it takes getting over the learning curve initially and the feeling of it being clunky initially, but that's just the way it is for anything we're learning that is unfamiliar to us. And this is what transforms life. And I believe that we're all here very purposefully for this point in human history to actually do this work in order to transform at least 51% of the energy. That's apparently all we need to tip the scales so that we actually have within our reach the ability to live life as a collective called humanity more peaceful than not, more hopeful than not, more abundant than not, more inclusive than not. And so, but it does take all of us. And if you're hearing these words now, if you're anywhere near this conversation, then your heart and your soul and your higher presence and you said, yes, I will do this work. I will show up and I will do my best. And that's all we can ever do on any given day is our best. So, it would be our human mind that kind of it is hard on us for it not being, meeting a certain bar, if you will. And that's very typical of the human mind, to be critical and judgmental of what we're actually doing. But if we can take a step back, take a breath, and say to ourselves, I'm doing my best. I have compassion for my best. I have a willingness to just put one foot in front of the other and do the best I can as I'm learning, as I'm being shown by my higher self how this actually works, as I'm what's that word when you counsel, when I ask for counsel from my heart to show me how to do this work. It's pretty magical compared to how it feels when we're being hypercritical and hyperjudgmental of whatever it is we are doing. So please just know that, because it is so vital. And what we're actually talking about in the moment when one feels hopeless or sad is what would work in this moment to soften that energy so I can sort of peel back the layers and find the gold nugget or the diamond inside of the intensity of that emotion in order to alchemize the energy, right? So let's talk about a few ways that you can do that. Some people call that changing your vibration. Some people call it healing. Some people call it transformation. Some people call it transmutation. Whatever word you apply to this process is not as important as that you work with this process, right? In case we haven't met, I am Laurie Morse. I'm a 30-year practitioner of Chinese medicine and the director of the Sacred Health Academy, which is an online journey for women, generally in the second half of her life, who are looking to heal, who are looking to excavate wisdom and impart that wisdom in a powerful way or an impactful way. I don't mean power as an abuse of power and crazy power. I'm talking about just how we carry ourselves, how we interact with people in our lives, how we get through a project, how we do our job or operate our business or raise our family or love on our grandchildren. All of those ways, that's the power I'm talking about. And a lot of times women will get to the point where they know they have to include their sacred self, but they're not really sure how to. But she's aching to live with a peaceful heart, a calm mind, energy in her body, so that she can live out the rest of her life with impact, the impact that matters to her heart, not anyone else's heart, but her heart. So let's talk about in the moment when we notice, and this of course requires us to stay present, right? And notice what's going on. And if we notice a hopelessness or a sadness, especially when we're looking out into the world affairs and how things are happening, it's very hard on human hearts to watch all of this, especially so many things going on at the same time. Clearly, just taking a breath is one way to sort of settle ourselves back into our center. Here's the point of what we're doing here. We're observing. We're coming back to center, because when we observe and go down the rabbit hole or fall in the quicksand, so to speak, of hopelessness, then there's nothing we have really in that moment anyway to offer the collective except for our hopelessness. And that, that's not necessarily the ingredient to the recipe that would be the best ingredient to offer. That's how best way I can think about saying that. So there's lots of ways we can change our energy in a moment, a breath, reaching for gratitude, having a conversation with someone that will be more uplifting, to find the even if it's just a little flicker of light in the hard, dark times, right? You can say a prayer, you can meditate, do a 5 or 2 minute meditation. You can play some music that your heart and soul likes, right? And that it makes you feel uplifted. Move your body, sometimes just shaking and, even just jumping up and down, doing a little jig, anything like that will help change your energy in the moment. Finding something to giggle or laugh about. And there's also things that we can do, like we can plant a garden. We can, be in a high state of nourishing that which is around us, whether that's our pets or our children or our grandchildren or ourselves. Taking a moment to just have a moment of self-love, of self-nourishment, that's a big deal. It affects the collective in ways that, are hard to see, but it's physics, right? And if you're someone who thinks, I can't possibly take a moment to be self-nourishing right now when all of this is going on, that's actually the key, that you do need to take that moment for self-nourishment, right? You can prepare a lovely meal. You can gather your meal with color. You can do a creative process. This is actually one of the ways that I move a lot of energy on the regular, is I have, regular, either a journal page open or, one particular canvas. I'm looking over my table where I have all this stuff. Just a small 12 by 12 or something. And I'll just make a mark on the canvas. This is like praying through an implement, whether it's a pen or a paintbrush or, or any kind of mark making device. It's coming from my heart. I am wanting to compost hopelessness, and it's moving out my arm and through the implement, and then it's being delivered onto a receptacle that has tangible form, because I know that when I do that, it moves my energy, and then that tangible form, which I actually have called to, we get to set our intentions any way we want. I call that a sacred altar, ALTAR, where energy is altered, ALTER, right? So, and if you haven't done this, it's pretty remarkable how it works, right? So you can, you can look for ways to help situations, like donating to causes or asking your higher self to guide you. If this feels right for you, to volunteer your services somewhere, or just volunteer your time. You can pick up trash when you're taking a walk. By the way, being out in nature is probably one of the best ways, when we're present, of changing our vibration, because nature is already holding herself in a vibration that is more centered than not compared to us, that's for sure. Even in storms and whatnot, I mean, that's just the flow of life, right? So getting out into the light of the day or the moon of the night, or that kind of thing, is being near trees, hugging a tree, all of that I had this is really curious. I had this pain in my neck a couple of weeks ago, and I tried everything I know to try. I have lots of tools in my toolkit, and it really wasn't wanting to move. And I'm very attracted. I always get called to just go lay on the grass at this park we have a couple of blocks away. And and I laid on the grass for about 20 minutes, and that pain was gone. And so being grounded and earthed and anchored literally on Mother Earth is a thing. It's a medicine. I highly recommend it. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to make a list of things that you could do. Doesn't mean that you will do all of them in the moment, but things that you could do that would help you to shift your energy in the moment. And because when we're kind of lost in the quicksand, it's very hard for us to think about these grand ideas. They feel like way too out of our reach when we're in the middle of the quicksand, right? But if we look at a list and one of them that will light up for us, and we just do it, right? And then just notice how that changes your energy. And this is the key. This is the purpose of doing this, that when our energy is changed, I highly recommend and I invite you to connect to your higher self. Invite that energy into your heart and your soul and ask, what would be my best next move or step? Or how can I offer this energy to you to transform it, please? Actually, Mother Earth is a brilliant one of her superpowers is transforming energy. That's why I like to use the analogy of compost. You can ask for that energy to be composted by Mother Earth, and she will do it. And all she requires from you is your gratitude for that. Pretty easy, right? So sometimes I will actually, and sometimes people will say, I know I'm jumping around here. Well, I don't want to bury my head in the sand for my true feelings. And I get what you're saying there, but what I know is that if there's something that is yours to work with, like, a larger healing piece, it will be clear. Otherwise, it's our job to transform all of these passing energies or the thought forms, that are passing through the airwaves constantly. We don't see this. We don't know that it's happening. But when we become aware of it, we realize, oh, I just got triggered. Oh, I just got activated by, hopelessness or sadness or something like that. And it may or may not even be yours. But if you're aware of it, if you become aware of it, it's yours to transform. It's mine to transform when I become aware of it. There have been so many times when there have been energies where I was perfectly centered and fine, and all of a sudden I just felt like I sort of got walloped, if you will, with an energy, like, let's just say, hopelessness. And I'd be like, wow, where did that come from? Okay, well, I'm present to it, so it's mine to transform, to transmute. And when I do that, it doesn't take that long. Then it flows and transforms, and I'm very clear now that I want it to be transformed into a higher and more serving energy, aligned with the light of life and love, and fed back to me in due timing. Right? That's what I would recommend that you consider doing. It is what it means to be human, right? It's certainly what it means to be a human being that is devoted or willing to do, to be on the journey for healing themselves. That's what we're up to. For the next probably 10 years, we will be in a heightened state of healing. Mark my words. I mean, not that we haven't already been healing, but I mean a large and almost, well, let me just say it that way. A large percentage of humanity will be sort of in a consciously admitted state of, yes, I need to heal. There's energy here that is, requires my attention for healing and transforming, for the sole purpose of living in alignment with life, of living in alignment with the light that we are, which carries love, which is the entire fabric of the universe, even though the human mind cannot see that and almost will not see that until we kind of jimmy our way to a little bit of an opening, and then the mind goes, oh, okay, well, maybe there is something to this. And it'll still try to sort of seduce us back to the old ways, but and all of that is talked about in the book too, with this the destructive mode network, if you will, that our mind just insists on being the boss of. But I guarantee you there are ways out of that, out of that shackled state of living. So grab the book, because it really does kind of it talks about all of the pieces that are required. Of course, it requires us to do the work, but I highly recommend that you gift yourself that, so that we can all sort of elevate our capacity and our contribution to the collective that we are a part of, which is humanity. And that's a butterfly effect that changes every particle of life on Earth, even though we're standing, in our particular point of light. So thank you for being with me, and let me know whatever thoughts or comments you have, and I look forward to our time together next.